Trump want to annex Canada as 51st American state, annex Greenland, occupy Panama, make the European Union pay for the American deficit. Mexico higher taxes on Mexican import by 20%. Want to make China pay higher to export to the U.S. Also will make peace in the Middle East. Gaza, the liberation of the hostages, negotiations about many issues with the Gulf monarchies. Will let Putin occupy the territories that he occupied in order to get peace. First, can Trump annex Canada? Theoretically he does, and he have a few options. Mutual referendums in both countries or purchasing it, as the USA have a great deal of its territories purchased, like Louisiana from France and Alaska from Russia. Military intervention, as both countries are close allies. There are also political regimes and linguistic difference, like Canada is a monarchy under the sovereignty of the King of Great Britain Charles III. For Greenland it's another story, as it's now under Danish sovereignty, but the Kingdom of Denmark, despite the already existing military bases in Greenland, Denmark is pushing its colony for independence. One independent, it can be easily, I think, claimed by America, as its industry wants the precious resources of the island and the strategic location at the confront of Russia. South, Trump wants to reoccupy Panama, re-establish it as American colony, as it was transformed to Chinese de facto colony, but it's a strategic canal the US cannot simply ignore, which forcibly get China looking for other options, and China has few, like the railroad between Salina Cruz in the Pacific and Coatzacoalcos in the Caribbean, originally a French project. As a project of digging a canal was abandoned, but it was used by the American until the opening of the Panama Canal from 1901 to 1914, when it was abandoned, but the line was reopened by the Mexican president. And few other options. The Chinese are exploiting Guatemala, Honduras, Nicaragua, Costa Rica, and Colombia. China is causing major geopolitical problems for the USA, like its Belt and Road Initiative financing major infrastructure projects in Asian, Europe, and African countries like China, Mongolia, Russia. Corridor, major railroad system between China and Russia through Mongolia. New Eurasian land bridge railroad between and Russia. China Central Asia West Asia Corridor, which is a railroad from China through Kyrgyzstan, Uzbekistan, Turkmenistan to Iran, then Azerbaijan to Turkey. The China-Pakistan Corridor, which is a railroads, bridges, and acquisitions of Gwadar Port in Pakistan. Major rail who pass through Myanmar, Bangladesh, and India, and other through Thailand. Other major ports acquisitions in Kenya, Djibouti, Greece, and possibly Tunisia, with major military presence, especially in Djibouti, to fight against piracy in Somalia. The conflict Yemen make the China think about another way for exporting there than the Suez Canal. Suggested way may pass from Iranian port through Iran to the Caspian to Volga to St. Petersburg through canals and lakes. For major loss may be for Egypt. The major conflicts between China and USA will be about Taiwan, that export the major part of microchip to the world. From Biden administration, TSMC, the Taiwanese major microchip producer, was building a manufactory in Arizona after the rising tensions between the two countries. China was building artificial islands in the South China Sea. Trump will concentrate on his Asia allies after the signature of trilateral security partnership between Australia, the United Kingdom, and the United States AUKUS. And the USA had the agreement to build nuclear submarines for Australia as a backup plan if anything went wrong. With Russia, he will let them keep their already occupied territories. But he will never give them back their frozen funds, as West Countries has $300 billion of Russia assets. To keep the tension on European countries and make them pay for protection, as he has always said. Pay me for protection. The Europeans without the UK will be forced to collaborate to have their own military defense agreement. As an eventual withdrawal of the USA from the NATO agreement. As his plan to pay off $35 trillion by cryptocurrency and making his own crypto. The dollar. Trump, even his wife having her own cryptocurrency, Melania's called meme. Or going to Saudi Arabia for fiat money. After the Western countries' major losses after the America messy evacuation of Afghanistan in 14 to August 25, 2021, and the French military kicked out from their farmer colonies with Russian Wagner-backed coups. In countries like Mali, Niger, Burkina Faso, Central Africa, causing major troubles in Chad. Allied with the Rapid Support Forces in Sudan of Hamadati against the army, heavily engaged in gold mining with the support of the Emirates. Wagner have soldiers in Libya backing Khalifa Haftar in Briga, eastern side Libya. Thing was an advantage of the Western countries, with the Americans invading Afghanistan from 2002 and Iraq in 2003, having the agreement of Russia to use military bases in Central Asia. So the Americans had the control of all that area, Russia between Afghanistan and NATO bases in Europe, and Alaska, China with the bases in South Korea, Japan, and the Philippines, the Indian subcontinent, Pakistan, and India with the American bases in the Indian Oceans. Iran was between Afghanistan and Iraq. the American evacuation of Afghanistan, and the coup d'état of the Russian-backed Tokayev against his predecessor Nursultan Nazarbayev Western-backed. The conquest of Abkhazia and Ostia by the Russians was a major losses for the West despite the fall of Bashar el-Assad, the dictator of Russia, which make the future of military presence of Russia, especially in Tartus naval base and Mimim aerial base, in doubt. Maybe that was calculated between the belligerent that Russian let go Bashar in Syria for less military support by Western countries for the Ukrainians. Syria was weakened, occupied further territories in Syria, especially in Jabal Shaikh strategic position threatening Syria, and Libanon cleaned from Hezbollah presence. The next step will be pour parlor with Hamas in Gaza for not a permanent peace treaty and more likely to bring to Samaria and Judea to make the Palestinians to go to Jordania. After all, Iran has weakened after years of making war on several fronts like in Iraq, Syria, Lebanon, Gaza, and Yemen, with weakening economy under American sanctions for years. The Iranian nuclear program suffering from delays. The regime itself suffered many losses in his elite military force, the Revolutionary Guards like the General Qasem Soleimani, the President Ibrahim, and several staff members. Also in the allies like the Lebanese Hezbollah leader Hassan Nasrallah, Hamas leaders Ismail Haniyeh and Yahya Sinwar.